record button. But and I don't know if you've seen it on LinkedIn. I think they also posted on Twitter, but MASVS just released a new version. It now includes some privacy requirements, and that's the first version. I think it's the very first standard that ships by default, being represented in CycloneDX 1.6.
Ah, nice.
Yes.
That's I didn't see that. That's worth some LinkedIn posts, I think.
So yeah. So yeah, not only did they, accept that pull request, but now they've since released an updated version of the standard, which now is one of the delivery mechanisms is CycloneDX 1.6. So that's pretty awesome. So now we just need to get the rest of them kind of on board. um, Speaking of which, Jeff, I haven't had a chance to revisit the PCI stuff yet. So that's still kind of on my to-do. But I need to wrap up the C-bomb stuff right now. We're coming up for an ECMA TC54 meeting on Thursday this week. So there's a few minor last minute things that I'm having to iron out before that meeting. But after that, I should be able to spend a little bit more time on that other PCI standard, and then follow up with the gentleman as well. Um, does anybody have any updates? Anything they've been working on that's kind of relevant to the attestation work that we've been doing?
I I might be. I think I can probably slip it in. I think I'm talking at SBOM Aroma that Sis is putting on about SBOM sharing, and this might be a good segue just to slip in. Hey, attestation sharing, just until I just go off script. So I don't know how long I have or anything, but that'd be my hope is to weave some of this into that discussion in front of just working groups at that SBOM Aroma, which is like I think February like 29th. So
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Okay, no, that'd be great. A few other things that we're thinking about in terms of so within TC54, we've got obviously CycloneDX is kind of the headliner, but we've got some other things that TC54 is going to be picking up. One of them is package URL. So that will become a NECMA standard eventually. Right now, Philippe Oberdan is waiting for after FOSDEM to to spend a little bit more time in making this happen. In terms of where package URL would end up, whether it'll be independent over at LF, whether it's OWASP, doesn't really matter. But the great thing is that it will be coming under the umbrella of TC54 and will become an international standard. So that's great. The other thing that we're looking into, and I'm going to be bringing it up as one of the new orders of business on Thursday's TC54 meeting, is the common life cycle enumeration. And there's an opportunity that has also kind of picked up. There's been quite a few contributors to that. It's now becoming an OWASP project. I'm actually just waiting for Harold to do his little magic and whatnot. But I also have a co-leader of that project who's spent an awful lot of time doing end of life and the support, that type of thing. So I have some really good people working on it right now. The reason why I bring this up is, we've got the Transparency Exchange API, which is also going to be part of TC54, right? It's actually in its charter today. Well, not only are we envisioning the API as a mechanism to share artifacts like SBOMs and VEX, but as a way to get more fine tune information about stuff in the supply chain. For example, you know, is this component end of life? Yes or no? And there should be an API for that. There should be an API for, hey, is your product vulnerable to log4shell? Right? The fact that I have to share perhaps a 20 megabyte VEX file is kind of stupid when I really only want to know, hey, am I vulnerable to log4shell? So that those types of use cases are also going to be part of that. And of course, we envision attestations being part of that as well, because that ultimately is part of the one aspect of the supply chain. So as we start spinning up the, well, actually, as we start spinning down one of these groups, because our work will be coming to a close here fairly soon, we'll be spinning up another one in its place for the Transparency Exchange API and perhaps something else as well. So if you'd like to get involved with those, you know, please reach out on Slack and whatnot. And, you know, it'll be just like this. It'll be another feature working group. It'll be recorded. We'll have, you know, we've got the use cases already being documented, that sort of thing. So anyway, it kind of falls into line with the whole sharing thing, because we envision not just sharing of artifacts, but it's really more about sharing just the pieces of information that you might care about.
Cool.
So
Thanks.
one thing,
That's awesome.
sorry, Jeff.
I'm probably going to try and focus on the blueprints
Yep.
stuff. So, but it's great to know about those other groups going on.
There's there's part of the blueprints, Jeff. We had to remove part of, it was a small piece, but we had to remove part of the CBOM stuff because we couldn't get consensus on it. And we introduced a new kind of dependency relationship. So right now, the dependency relationships are, it's essentially a uses. So this component uses this other component. We introduced a new one called implements, and uses is the default. But now with implements, you can say, this cryptographic library implements this cryptographic algorithm. In the future, we'll be able to say, you know, if we could, you know, go with 1.7, we're talking about design. So if we had, you know, think Gang of Four style design patterns, right? Well, this thing implements MVC, proxy pattern, you know, whatever. We could do things like that in the future. But one thing that we had to omit was this concept of protected by. So this, for example, we had a use case where this, and it was done in a dependency relationship. So this data is protected by this cryptographic algorithm, right? Or this cryptographic library. And we pulled it out of there because we didn't get the consensus on it being as part of the dependency relationship. It's more of an action.
Right.
And that goes into more of the architecture type thing. So as you're thinking about the blueprints, I'd really love to come up with a large enumeration of the different types of things that software can do so that we can start describing the actions which can actually take place and protects, like protected, you know, encrypts,
Yeah.
you know.
If you're thinking about just the sort of the security relevant things that software can do, I'm on board. If it's like all the things software can do, it's kind of wide open for me.
Right. No, starting with security. I basically want to, what I'm kind of envisioning in my head is more of a, it's a few levels above UML, right? So more of an abstract thing.
Yes.
But yeah, in terms of just being able to identify things that would help the defenders, right? Because OWASP, for the most part, all of our projects, conferences, etc., are all about three personas: builders, breakers, and defenders. And there's nothing in an SBOM today that really helps defenders.
Yeah. Yeah, let me think about that. I mean, we have a model that we use, which is kind of biasing the way that I think about things, but it is like that. It's like a higher level UML. Basically, it captures for, from the entry point, it captures it kind of captures some of the upstream things that happen, like this has been through a SiteMinder or something, and then it you think about the events, the security relevant events that happen during the pendency of that request, and so it's things like it might go through authentication and access control. It might be other defenses and port validation and so on. There might be dangerous things that happen along that route, like we're going to query a database or parse an XML document, and then there's backend connections get made. And like, if you just think about all the security relevant things that happen on that flow, it's a nice thing to capture. It says, hey, here's this small threat model for just that piece of the pie. And it's pretty straightforward to implement, I think. So
that would be great, because I know you sent me an example a while back. It's been a long time since I've looked at it, so I can't recall what it actually looked like. But yeah, I mean, we have things like static analysis, which are way too low level. I mean, we need something a little more high level to describe what the application kind of does and what protections are in place. And if we actually had something like that, we could then theoretically tie this back to the attestation work, because then that also becomes evidence.
Right.
I think it'll be useful, like just like Jeff was saying, to have a open format for a threat model like that. That is a huge gap.
Well, yeah, you're right. I don't know if we want to go quite that far, because
OTM.
Well, it's just, there's, like, the way I think about it, there's the security architecture, and then the threat model is a layer on top of that, which adds details about the threats and the impacts, and it's got like more business stuff in it. Like, I don't think it's something you could automatically generate. It's not that I'm saying it wouldn't be worth modeling. It's just like, to me, step one is like, let's have a really solid platform to build that on top of. And then I think they're kind of separate. Like, to me, they're like, this is how it actually works, and then this is how the threats and the impacts kind of layer on top of that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if we get all this done and we still want to go down the threat modeling route, I would totally be on board. I mean, OTM.
Maybe it's not bad. Maybe I'm just thinking at it from my point of view, but maybe it's not bad to just do it all at once, because I do think there'd be a lot of support for an open threat modeling standard, because there isn't one right now.
Yep.
Like,
yeah, well, there's OTM, which does the data flow diagrams, but obviously a threat model is more than just a data flow diagrams.
Yep.
I mean, and there's other kinds of diagrams too, like attack trees.
Yeah.
So that OTM just doesn't capture, right? So how could we come up with one that kind of does everything in a machine readable way?
But I do agree with Jeff in that the first level is the architecture, the data flow diagrams, the architecture, application architecture itself, and the threat model is a layer on top. So if we can define that in a layered manner, if it's a single format, that's great. If it has to be different formats, we can decide to.
Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome.
I can't wait to jump into that. That's going to be great.
That's going to be fun.
Yeah.
That level of transparency, I don't think it doesn't exist today.
Right.
But do we think that level of transparency is possible? I mean, it is an attestation is possible to share, but is there where is the relationship where you trust enough to provide a full threat model to a third party?
Well, I'll just say, like, what my company's approach to that problem is to record that behavior directly from the running application or API, and build the model from real world observation of what actually happened. And we've found you can go a pretty long way. Like you can say all the things I just said, you can determine them automatically by watching the code run and build a picture from it.
Right.
One of the interesting things about one of the interesting things about instrumentation in general is that it dramatically reduces the cost of producing VEX. Right now, there are no tools that exist to confirm whether or not your prior analysis decisions are still valid today. It's a really expensive problem. So like if you can't upgrade components, for example, and you backport security fixes as responsible companies do, well, how do you know that your backports and how you use those components are still safe? You know, this minor version and this minor version and this major version and that other it becomes really challenging and cost prohibitive to provide VEX because there's just no tools. And instrumentation is certainly one way to kind of reduce that cost. But I mean, if VEX, in my opinion, if VEX ever wants to be a thing, I mean, they seriously need to think about cost for suppliers that have a large number of components. Because if you're a small little application, fine, VEX is cheap. Upgrade your components, not a problem. But if you have a fair amount of dependencies and you're doing a lot of the things that open source projects do and making modifications and tracking the pedigree and everything, VEX is just, it's pretty much a non-starter. It's too expensive.
Yep.
So if anyone wants to start creating tools to do that.
Well, it gets so expensive that it would be probably in a lot of cases cheaper and faster to just fix the library, like just update the library or contribute a fix.
Yeah, and sometimes organizations do, and sometimes when you have like my own organization, sometimes you just have so many components that eventual tight coupling becomes a thing, and now one upgrade now results in 100 upgrades, and you just can't do it.
Yeah.
So
I think this is one of the highlights which Ian mentioned in his document for the missing parts in the tool chain. I think, and yeah, I think Ian mentioned this in his, again, I think it's a GitHub pull request or a document. I don't remember where, but like he refers to this missing parts in the tool chain or the tools, which will be useful in adoption of this VEX.
Yeah, for sure. So I think, without a cost-effective way to do VEX, I think attestations are probably going to be much more used than a lot of folks think. So I think the work that we've all done here is going to be really important in the future. So let's see. So yay, all the really excited to kick off all the architecture stuff for 1.7, which first trying to get 1.6 out the door. We still got like I said, the CBOM stuff is going up for vote on Thursday. We've got a few outstanding PRs and a few quality things to do. But quite honestly, the most of February is going to be consumed just with documentation for all the CycloneDX core team. So we'll be pretty much heads down. But yeah, as soon as the attestation stuff is done and the CBOM stuff is done, again, we'll be spinning up new feature working groups for probably the Transparency Exchange API. We might have one for common lifecycle enumeration, and possibly one for some of the architecture stuff coming in 1.7 as well. So exciting times. Where are we in terms of the guides? And are we at the same place?
I haven't touched it. So we're right where we were as far as I know.
Okay.
Yeah, sadly, shame. This way towards me and probably everyone.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. Arrow points at me as well. Okay. That's what I thought as much.
I don't think it's that far. Like, I think the remaining sections are pretty short, or we could really kind of write short versions and just kind of get the first version out there and wait for feedback.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the ones which we are
we-
missing are the use cases and scenarios and the examples. I mean, if I'm right, I mean, we have already introduced the topics for the attestation. We talked about evidence, we talked about standard. I think the last part is the one which is missing.
Yeah, we need to start documenting these use cases. Like I said, I don't think we have that in there. We have more of the, I think we have more of the tactical stuff documented in the guide, yes?
Do you think MASVS is a good, like a standard to add here? Is it, since it's already part of the CycloneDX, is it?
To add, to add to the guide, you mean? Yeah, sure. I mean, if you're a mobile app provider, especially in like moderate to high assurance, like banking industry, for example, yeah, heavily used.
I mean, since they have already coded that into the CycloneDX format.
Yeah.
So that as an example.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But yeah, we need to spend a little more time on the use cases, I think. Let me pull up the guides. I'm also going to be updating the SBOM guide that we have to include the new parts of 1.6 as well, because there's been some few minor changes to just the SBOM stuff itself. So I'll be updating that as well. I would eventually, once we get enough guides written, I would love to be able to just consolidate them into one. Let me share my screen. Where's my Zoom again? Okay. So let's see, introduction. Okay. Standards, the standards themselves. I thought we were going to turn that into a table, actually, was kind of what we decided. A table with a paragraph or two, kind of an introduction. We've got
Didn't I do that? I thought on the standards one, I thought I did it. Is there a PR still sitting out there?
Let me check. Oh, okay. I just did an update, so let me see. Oh yeah, I guess you did. All right, I just updated. Okay. Thank you, Jeff. Okay. All right, so that's that. That's good. Mobile application, so that's in there. Making attestations, that needs to be updated. Substantiating evidence with claims. I thought this was actually pretty good, but looks like there's some to do. We were going to do some snippets. Okay, that's fine. We can do some snippets. Documenting non-conformance. This all needs to be written. Signing was done. Manoj, you did this, didn't you? That's what I thought. Okay. This is all really good. Okay. XML. Implementing. But yeah, there's no like real thing for use cases, right? And the use cases usually come first. So here's the problem statement. Here's how CycloneDX attestations address the challenge. There's tool support. There's join us. do we want either in here or in another chapter talk about some basic use cases?
I'll have to jump now. I'll catch up.
Okay, Manoj.
Steve?
All right.
I think it's probably a good idea if we could capture some use cases. It's all kind of hypothetical until people really start using it. So, but we could capture our intended use cases.
I actually like that word. Okay. Okay, so that needs to be written. I don't think that would be a lot of work either. I think there's only like 2 or 3 that we probably actually want to document anyway. Right. I mean, we want to document, the supplier to consumer. We'd want to document like a use for an internal policy type of use case. And then we want to document maybe, some industry or federal regulation type use case. Right. I mean, I think those are the 3 big ones, aren't they?
Same again?
Supplier to consumer, right? Where the consumer is demanding some kind of adherence to something, like think SSDF. You've got the internal use case where you might have a policy that demands maybe your team is conforming to ASVS level 2 with a few minor tweaks, right? So you might want to have a use case for that. And there's going to be a use case for any kind of regulatory or other kind of compliance type framework.
Yeah.
I mean, those are the 3 big ones, right? I mean, I'm sure there's other ones, but I think those are the 3 that 80% of organizations would probably start using right away.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
Like, I suppose like there's standards organizations that there's a use case for creating new standards and stuff, but I don't think it matters that much. You're looking at the big end-to-end kind of uses.
Um, yeah, I think those are the 3 big ones. I mean, there's other ones, but I mean, we can change these words around, but I just wanted to capture those 3. Okay. Okay, so really that needs to be done. This one part, oh, this was already done. That was great. Oh, we need to do, is that this part we need the snippets or no? To do add links for CDXA versions. Oh, PCI. Okay. That's to do on me. This has got the code snippet. These have got the code snippet. So we've got code snippets to do. Code snippets and this. And then if we want to punt on I mean, we can always punt on this for the time being. You know, I think the Transparency Exchange API is going to have a profound effects on this, perhaps. Attestation quality is going to require a ton of thought. What's the group's opinion on maybe punting on this and saving it maybe for the next revision?
Absolutely. I think it's a great
That
idea.
works for me. I mean, we'll know a lot more once people start using it a little bit more.
Right. Yeah, I can't tell them how to implement something if I don't know how they intend to use it.
But I don't know how you do this for other projects, but if we're intentional about gathering feedback from
Yeah.
folks that use it and creating FAQs and stuff like that, that'll deal with most of this.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. All right, so we'll punt on that then. In fact, let me just remove it. Otherwise it's gonna get built. Okay. So really it's just the examples and there's documenting non-conformance, which will probably also have some examples. And that's really about it. There's not a lot more in here that we need to do. Like I said, once we get enough of these guides actually created, so like there's the SASBOM guide, there's a VEX VDR guide, there's an ML guide, ML bomb guide, there's a CBOM guide that the CBOM group is going to be starting, I think this week. So once we get enough of these guides actually written, the idea is then to just aggregate a lot of this content into one big guide. So
is that the target to have one big guide released, or are you they're really all in one repo?
not for
You're gonna
1.6.
mono repo?
Yeah, not for 1.6. Right now, it's all individual guides. The issue with the individual guides is that the introductions, for example, they're all the same. So it's just a bunch of copy and paste, which, you know what I mean? It's kind of a waste. So
And you can just
think,
you can go on tour and you can just give talks like those guys from NIST who keep talking about the NIST RMF, and they just talk about all the 20 standards that are part of that.
right, exactly. Okay, so I can certainly work on getting the code snippets in there for the making attestations and or yeah, and the claims with evidence and whatnot. Can somebody take on the task of writing content for these four things? Documenting non-conformance. So this is non-conformance, which include plan of action and milestones, mitigation strategies, and counter evidence.
Boy, that sounds like Jeff all over it.
That's weird. I was just thinking it sounded exactly like you.
Like we're playing a hot potato.
I honestly don't know what any of that is about.
This was about like, for example, if you're not, remember we've got the conformance, I think it's a decimal or whatnot, it's a number. So if you're not like 100% conformant to something, then, the idea was then to provide, well, what is your mitigation strategy for becoming conformant? So that's part of it. The counter evidence is another part. I mean, realistically, mitigation strategies probably rolls up to poems anyway, even though poem is more of a US government term. It's not necessarily used internationally.
Why don't we just put it under mitigation strategies and call it, say, this might also be in the form of a poem.
Right. Yeah, because that's really what it is. Unless, yeah, Ian, do you disagree with that at all or no?
No. I think Jeff and I are in the same boat where it's like, yeah, we could put something there. It's not, you know, yeah. CRC is not my strong suit. I try to typically avoid all processes at all costs.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, if someone needs to do it, I'm happy to jump on this and add some text.
All right. I'm gonna get my plan is to get the code snippets done for these chapters done by the next time we meet. I'd love to be able to get the guide basically in a buildable and semi-shareable state within the next week or two. So that would be great, because once we're done writing this, we basically just run everything through Grammarly and, you know, make any kind of corrections that we might want. But other than that, some of this content will probably end up being a preface to some of the ECMA TC54 documentation that we're currently working on as well. So the what we're writing actually serves multiple purposes. All right. Anybody have anything else that they wanted to bring up today? I think we've kind of covered everything. I think we know what we all kind of need to do.
Nope, nothing for me.
You're just going back to protecting your office, Jeff, huh?
My dogs really want to help.
That's hilarious. All right, well, we can probably end the call early, give you 19 minutes back of your time. So again, thank you so much for contributing. Truly appreciate it. And I'll go ahead and make these commits now and talk to you all soon.
That's good.
All right,
Cheers.
Thanks, Steve.
All right, bye-bye.